Thank you for joining me, viewers. Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. We're in the Watchtower study edition for November 2019, paragraphs 1 and 2, according to 1 Peter 4, 7 through 8, what will help us cope with adversities? There's signs, because they say we need good friends during the Great Tribulation, there's signs that are going to take place before the tribulation begins. One of those signs is there'll be a world leader that brings peace to the world like no other. But he'll be assassinated. He'll be mortally wounded in front of the world, so it'll probably happen on TV. There's all sorts of signs. So the tribulation isn't going to hit you if you're a Bible observer and world observer of world events. It's not going to hit you with too much surprise, but at this stage there's no sign of that taking place as yet. So the guessing game can be taken right out of when the tribulation is going to happen. But back to this article, which has been quite a circus really, considering that Jehovah Witnesses say true friends show love at all times, and we got lost in a few presentations there about shunning. Paragraphs 1 and 2, according to 1 Peter 4, 7 through 8, what will help us to cope with adversities? Well, one of the things that will help Jehovah Witnesses cope with adversities is to accept people outside their organisation. I know they have trouble accepting those in the organisation that don't want to bend the knee to the organisation's needs and wants, but they need to stop undermining governments. They need to stop undermining worldly people. As I said before in one of my last talks, the Jehovah Witnesses that I was speaking to down in the park the other day, women of all things, I was shocked, said they can't wait for Armageddon because people that have used Jehovah's name in vain will be dealt with. Look, viewers, I have to be honest with you, I've never heard anything like that. All the Christians I know, they are hoping Armageddon and the Great Tribulation is postponed for as long as possible. But not the Jehovah Witnesses. They want vengeance on the people that aren't Jehovah Witnesses, basically. So let's just read this. They've got a picture here as we're using for the background of the series, where people are huddled in an attic, obviously hiding from this kind of thing that I'm showing you here. This is real life. This is real footage from the Russian scandal, put up by JW Russia Video. It's part of their propaganda. You can watch that while I read. But this is the picture they're painting, the Jehovah Witnesses, of trying to dodge this kind of thing. Now, they're not going to dodge this kind of thing for several reasons. The Russian government went over their articles linguistically and decided that theologically their theology is corrupted and extreme. And I agree with that, because I was really, really shocked. As a simple Australian conscientious observer of religion, I was extremely shocked the way in which those Jehovah Witness women were trying to bring on Armageddon for the destruction of people that won't become Jehovah Witnesses. I couldn't believe their attitude. As we move deeper into the last days, we may face severe adversities. For example, after one election campaign, a country in Western Africa was torn apart by social unrest and mob violence. We have social unrest and mob violence happening all over the world. It's irrespective of the position of the Jehovah Witnesses. For over 6 months, our brothers and sisters could not move about freely because they were in a combat zone. My advice to people that are in combat zones, be Jehovah Witnesses or not, is to flee. And the governments will tell people to flee. If there's something going on in Western Africa, the Australian consulate will warn the Australians in that area to leave. Now, if the Jehovah Witnesses are ignorant enough not to leave, then they deserve everything they get. The Russian government has banned the Jehovah Witness organization as extreme. Now, this isn't the first time it's happened to this cult. Now, if they want to, in one of a leaked video, they're in their private leaders meeting, hierarchy, top brass meeting, they said that Russia's taking on a mountain if they think they're going to take on the J-dubs. Well, be very careful what you say, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, because Russia just does not muck around. Now, if you're in a combat zone, honestly, if there's bombs going off around you, what are you going to do? Stand there with a Jehovah Witness cart? Is that what you're going to do? Or several of you, if you don't want to do it on your own? Are the brothers and sisters going to stand there with you? No, I honestly believe the Jehovah Witnesses, like anybody else, are going to run and get out of there. And if you don't, you get what you deserve. What helped them to cope with such hardships? Now, this is more than hardship. This is what would you say? This is crisis. This is a crisis point. This is a point where you have to get out. If you're not a military person in a combat zone, you need to leave, or you're going to be maimed and killed. This isn't a time of hardship. This has got nothing to do with religious work. This has got to do with intergovernmental or sociological battles. You're not going to stand there with a cart and take them on, are you? So some found refuge in homes of brothers living in a safer area. Other brother reported, in such a situation, I appreciated having friends around me. We were able to encourage one another. Okay, this is what a war zone looks like, viewers. This is graphic footage. You can have a look at this. Well, are you going to think that the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be standing in a war zone with all this sort of thing within a combat zone? This is real. People die in combat zones. They're not the sort of place that you just stay around. This sort of language is so far from reality, it's not funny. In such a situation, I appreciated having friends around me. We were able to encourage one another to do what? To stay with a cart? Look. No, you want to be encouraging one another to get out of there. Get your senses together and get out of there. When the Great Tribulation strikes, we will appreciate having good friends who love us. You'll appreciate more than that. You'll be trying to stay alive. So it is urgent that we build strong bonds of friendships now. Now, the problem with this is, and let's just face it, the Jehovah Witnesses don't want to build friendships with people outside their organisation. They don't want to build friendships with people that are not Jehovah Witnesses. Some more Civil War footage. Do you think the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be hanging around there trying to make friends and all the rest of it while all this sort of stuff's going on where they're trying to be missionaries? No. We can learn much from the experience of Jeremiah, whose friends helped him survive during the time leading up to the destruction of Israel. How can we imitate Jeremiah? Jeremiah's got nothing to do with this sort of civil unrest, which is what they're talking about. They're talking about, and they mentioned themselves here in the article, a combat zone. Do you think the Jehovah Witnesses are going to be encouraging one another to stay out there in with the carts in this sort of thing, or hide in homes and stuff? You don't see Jehovah Witnesses helping these people that are fleeing war. You do see the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and all these types trying to get in and help, but you won't see the Jehovah Witnesses organisation get involved in this sort of charitable work. You just won't see it. It's not what they do. So if Jehovah Witnesses want to, play the persecution game for an organisation that's regarded as extreme and a cult, then go right ahead. You're not going to find any example from Jeremiah, because you'll see Jeremiah got his mates to go and do his dirty work. He didn't risk it himself. So I'm going to hand this over. We'll look at some videos. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. I hope you enjoy the following presentations. Links will be left below.
I've got some new fan art for you guys, for the first time in a while, thanks to all the artists who drew for me. I know I missed some, but it's on its way. I was saving it up. Anyways, I took a glance at the new Caleb and Sophia videos, and the first one is another musical. So as usual, I'm just gonna read the lyrics to it. I don't want to risk a copyright situation. Okay, let's get into it. The first clip is called Caleb and Sophia Visit Bethel. Before I actually read this, let me just explain what Bethel is, for people who've never been Jehovah's Witness before. It's basically what amounts to Jehovah's Witnesses' cult compound. Now, bear with me here. I know some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who went to Bethel might disagree with that assessment, but think about this. The most zealous of the zealous go there to live with other extremely zealous Jehovah's Witnesses. It's like a bunch of apartments inside a big building. They have different Bethel locations, but this is the place where they do all their printing and graphics design and web hosting and everything. It's a giant facility. Everything they do operates out of these locations. Now, I never went to Bethel, but I do remember visiting the Patterson branch, I think, when I was little. They have tours, and it's kind of like a required pilgrimage for Jehovah's Witnesses. They heavily encourage people to go there and tour the facility, but they have parts that are open to the public and parts that are private, from what I understand. Anyways, when you live there, you have absolutely no privacy. Zero. Anybody can go through your stuff at any time for any reason, or no reason at all. I've heard lots of stories about people having some questionable magazine or something, and the maids find it and they get kicked out of Bethel. So, zero privacy. They also have everything provided to them. Food, water, clothing, everything. They completely rely on the Watchtower Society for the things they need to keep them alive. Lots of people will stay at Bethel for decades, until they reach their 60s or 70s and they can't work anymore, at which point the Watchtower Society basically kicks them out. No retirement plan, no thank you, no nothing. That's pretty concerning to me right off the bat. I guess they just have to hope that they have families who can take them in. They don't even have any useful skills after working for the Watchtower Society for all those years. Of course, you've got the writers, the animators, but what does the janitor do for the next 10 years of his life, with no retirement plan? As far as I know, you aren't allowed to have children either, and I think it's against the rules to get married while you're in Bethel. I think you have to join married. I'm not 100% on that. It could be completely wrong, so don't quote me. Anyways, they're heavily brainwashed and completely dependent on the Watchtower Society while they're there, and when they can't do anything for them anymore, they kick them out on the street. Not a great situation. But Bethel definitely qualifies as a cult compound in my eyes. Granted, you can leave when you want, but they convince you that you don't want to leave. Ever. Outsiders aren't allowed in the non-public areas, like the living and dining areas, and outside of knocking on doors, the Bethelites never leave the compound either. I'm calling it. It's definitely a cult compound. Okay, let's give this Caleb and Sophia clip a listen and see what they had to say about Bethel. It says, "We got to go to Bethel, and I'm really glad. We all said it was the best time that our family ever had. The people there at Bethel serve Jehovah every day, working hard and serving others because that's the Bethel way. Bethel means the house of God. We call it Bethel because this place is His. Bethel is the house of God. To serve Jehovah is the best work that there is. We saw the things they make there, books and Bibles by the ton, so the truth about God's kingdom can go out to everyone. If you can visit Bethel, you'll be glad you got to go. It's Jehovah's house of service, and you'll see it's really so. Bethel means the house of God. We call it Bethel because this place is His. Bethel is the house of God. To serve Jehovah is the best work that there is. To serve Jehovah is the best work that there is." And then Caleb says, "I want to go to Bethel when I grow up." Well then, that's something. Obviously, they're trying to push kids to go to Bethel when they get older. For obvious reasons. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but if you've ever wondered how Jehovah's Witnesses stay afloat with all these child sex abuse fines and settlements, this is how they do it. Obviously, donations can't possibly add up to very much. I mean, they oppress their members. They tell them college is bad. A disproportionate number of Jehovah's Witnesses are window cleaners, which is a perfectly honorable occupation, but that means that they're probably going to have less money to donate to the Watchtower Society, no matter how hard they squeeze them. So what's the solution? Their answer to the problem was honestly pretty smart. They needed money pretty quickly a year or two ago, so they got onto their JW broadcasting show and asked the members for more donations. That gave them what they needed in the short term. Meanwhile, they put what they called a master plan into action, where they moved everybody around to new kingdom halls. You know how airlines will overbook flights because they expect like 20% of the people to not show up? So they'll sell an extra like 20 tickets or something and it evens out. Well, that's pretty much what Jehovah's Witnesses did with congregations. They put 2 or 3 congregations in the same kingdom hall, just at different times, and they overbooked the congregations that were there. Then they took all the old kingdom halls and liquidated for quick cash. In some cases, they had the congregations do what they call a quick build, which is where they show up at a location on a Friday and they have an entirely new kingdom hall built by Monday, pretty much. It gets done really quickly with like 100 people working on the project. It's honestly really smart. Problem is that the members get pretty mistreated in the process. So you get them putting out propaganda videos about just doing what the elders tell you to do. If they want you to go to the South congregation, then just go to the South congregation. I don't care if your family's in North. If they want you to go to South, then you go to South. That whole thing. It's also used to drive a wedge between people's family and friends, thus driving them closer to the organization. The problem with the governing body is that they believe they're divinely inspired. I really think they buy their own propaganda. They think they're special, and as a result of that, they have a lot of trouble seeing their own mistakes. When you believe that the decisions you make are actually being made by God, it's nearly impossible to question yourself. Anyways, the next one's pretty long, so I'm going to be skipping around a lot, but it has a lot of interesting stuff to say. Let's take a look at the next Caleb and Sophia video.
Hey, Sophia, what you reading? Hey! Hey, give me my hat back. Come on, mine.
Okay, so obviously they're showing that Sophia is kind of ashamed or embarrassed about her faith. That's what this whole episode is going to be about. Knowing that you're going to get bullied and picked on for being weird and talking about Jehovah anyways. This is just another one of those things that fuels their persecution complexes. They're expected to flaunt their beliefs publicly, put them out there as obviously as possible, and expect to be ridiculed and mocked for them. You can't keep religion private as a Jehovah's Witness. You're supposed to impose it on everybody around you. It's expected of you. If you aren't doing that, then you aren't being a good Jehovah's Witness. And obviously that leads to people making it clear that they don't really believe what you had to say about the Bible. And in many cases, it leads to mockery. Now, as I've said, I don't stand for abuse, harassment, or mockery generally. I don't feel like it's productive. I feel like a more productive method of getting somebody to realize their beliefs are ridiculous is by talking them through it logically. You can check out my video on deprogramming a religious extremist if you're interested in that subject. But this is the kind of thing that Jehovah's Witnesses can and do expect when they do as the governing body expects of them and they put their beliefs out there for the world. Mockery.
I feel so bad for Zoe. Her grandma died. I wanted to tell her about Jehovah, but I got scared. I wish I was more brave.
Sophia, you can be brave.
So obviously they're depicting Sophia as ashamed of being afraid to get picked on by her fellow classmates for bringing up some weird religious beliefs at every turn. Honestly, I feel like the way they target emotionally vulnerable people like this is crooked. Having kids tell their classmates who just had a family member die that Jehovah will bring them back from the dead. That just feels wrong. I know they believe this to be helpful, so they believe they're doing a good thing. It just bothers me. In the video, the mom tells Sophia about some kid in the Bible who was a slave and wasn't allowed to talk about Jehovah in her master's house. Well, she ended up breaking the rules and talking about Jehovah anyways. This is Jehovah's Witnesses communicating that breaking the rules is the only acceptable option if it means they can talk about Jehovah. More persecution bullshit. Anyways, by the end of it, the master converted to believing in Jehovah and thanked the slave girl for talking about him. Sophia is supposed to derive a lesson from all that. Talk about Jehovah regardless of how many rules or laws there are against it. Talk about Jehovah no matter how badly you're going to get mocked or shamed. The more people make fun of you, the more right you are. Check out the ending to the video.
She didn't know what was going to happen after she spoke up. But she knew no matter what happened, Jehovah would be with her. And Jehovah will be with you too, Sophia.
I'm sorry about your grandma. This is for you. It will help you feel better.
Thank you.
Hey, Timmy. Want to see what I was reading on the bus?
Sure.
This book teaches about Jehovah.
Jehovah?
Yeah, that's God's name. It tells us about a happy future for the earth. Plus, there's a bunch of pictures in here to help you learn about him.
Wow, pretty cool. Thank you.
Bye. I want to tell people at school about Jehovah. If I'm ever afraid, I know he'll help me. Because he's my friend.
Ugh, this almost makes me vomit. It's so overt. It's disgusting to me how they can justify using children this way. I would never, never send Kylie to school and tell her to give her classmates a copy of The God Delusion. School is viewed as kids' own personal territory because Jehovah's Witnesses can't always physically reach the parents' houses, especially in the wealthier gated communities. Kids can talk to the kids of rich parents, exposing them to these ideas. Speaking of The God Delusion, I'm sure that most of you guys know that that book was written by Richard Dawkins. And Richard Dawkins is famously the person who coined the term meme. He invented the entire field of memetics. The idea behind it is that thoughts and ideas act like viruses in many ways. They have to propagate to survive. They change and mutate with each person they pass through, based on that person's own beliefs and ideas and feelings. When Sophia spreads these ideas to her classmates, they might sit in them dormant for decades, until one day, years later, they hear from another Jehovah's Witness and remember their good friend Sophia and how nice she was. Next thing you know, they're going to a meeting. We need to make sure these bad ideas stop at us. Propagate the good ideas, let the bad ones die. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. I appreciate everything you guys do to keep my activism work going. I seriously could not do this job without you. So if you feel like you believe in the cause I'm fighting for and you want to see the voice get louder, then go to my Patreon in the description. Also, check me out on all social media and check out my podcast. I'm reading the Jehovah's Witnesses' new book called Pure Worship of Jehovah right now. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.